Hi guys, welcome back to the On The Hook channel. I'm Howard Cronston and today you join me in a very cold and windy day next to the river. It's early season and we're looking for rising brown trout in frankly not the best of conditions. Now we fished a little bit yesterday and we had some nice success. We got a nice little window in the weather where it wasn't quite as windy and a little bit warmer. What we're going to do now is, despite the conditions, we're still going to try and sneak a fish out on a dry fly. We've been stood near the river, we've been watching. That's one of the key things to do at this time of the year, is take your time and look. We've seen a few flies hatching and I've seen one fish already that's rose. So what we're doing now is just waiting a little bit longer to see if it gets into a regular feeding pattern before we try and catch it. So what I'm doing is trying to keep as low as possible when I'm approaching the fish. I've got knee pads on so it lets me kneel down and keep a relatively low profile. In all honesty, the orange hat I'm wearing is probably not the best move, but because we're fishing in relatively shallow water and I'm keeping quite a low profile, I'm never going to get close enough for them to see it, to be honest, so it's not really an issue today. So we've got a nice fish hook there now. Just took a little olive pattern, just in this little back header here off to the side of the main flow, where it's really not going to fight the current and it can just wait for the flies to come to it. There we go, nice little fish. Go and have a really quick look at him. Before I touch him, I'm going to get my hand nice and wet and nice and cold. Just a quick look, lift him nice and quick. Beautiful little wild fish and straight back in. So we've just caught that nice little fish there. There was actually two much bigger fish rising further out in the river behind it, but a good adage is never look a gift horse in the mouth, particularly at this time of year. So I chose to try and catch that smaller fish first before I threw to the bigger ones. I just basically didn't want to spook that one and then blow the whole thing completely. So at least we've caught one and we'll have a little go now for those two bigger ones. So after we caught that fish, a little bit like I feared, to be honest, when I've played it, it's actually put the other two fish down, so they've stopped rising for a minute. So what I'm going to do is dry the fly off with a bit of desiccant powder, get it nice and high floating again, and then I'm going to head down to where I saw a fish a little bit earlier and see if that one has settled into a bit of a feeding rhythm, and we'll see if we can catch him. So we've just come downstream and we've seen a couple of the fish that we saw earlier on have gone on the feed a little bit more regularly. There's a few March browns coming down, there's some large dark olives, but they're still a little bit sporadic. So we're going to have a few drifts around and see if we can trick one of them into coming up. Oh! And we lost him. Sometimes it happens. Luckily, it wasn't that big a fish. That was actually a fish that we saw rise right at the start of the hatch. Just came up a couple of times, but I couldn't tempt him. And then we went upstream and we found some fish that were feeding a little bit more regularly up in the head of the pool, and we caught a nice fish there. But I came back downstream and he was feeding a little bit more regularly, and he took it quite confidently the second time. Fortunately it came off, but you can't win them all. It really does show though, by being observant and moving around and looking all of the time, that you can often find success even on very challenging days weather-wise. So the flies I've used today, I've used a large dark olive pattern that has a shuck trailing off the back of the fly. That's to imitate an adult olive that has not fully managed to escape from its nymphal shuck, and it presents an easy target to a fish. The other fly that I've used is a big profile, high floating, March brown, dun pattern, which can really pull fish up in these kind of conditions when they're looking for quite a big mouthful. The persistence has really paid off. I honestly thought the day was done. The fly had almost vanished. There was nothing rising. But I just came back to the spot where I'd seen those slightly bigger fish earlier on and just threw a few blind casts out there just to search it before we finally packed up. We got exactly what we came for, an absolutely beautiful golden wild brown trout. I'm going to slip him back quickly. There he goes. Perfect. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. All the links to the products I've been using are in the description, and hopefully see you next time.